That's the second half of Horizon 2020 for us. And here please notice those numbers there. So for foundations, the ecosystem I talked about, 395 million euro, transforming the European industry, almost 500 million, and even more for industrial sustainability. Essentially, this is our industrial program for the years to come. Next. So what does this mean in particular? Foundations, here you see that characterization and modeling are part of that. It's the horizontal actions I talked before. And in the third bullet point, you see the safety-related topics. So for all those, you see the first 2 years are quite heavy. And for 2020, there is some room to define the topics a bit later, in a couple of years from now. Then, next please. We have the transformation of European industry, and here you recognize some of the other actions like biotechnology, factors of the future, and medical. Next. The industrial sustainability, again, some are known as the contractual PPPs, like the energy efficient buildings and the SPIRE, and some of the other targets like circular economy and energy and cultural heritage. Okay, just for reference, I will not develop these. I go further to focus on what is going for nanosafety. So these are for recalling really the latest projects that we have launched. ACE Nano and MP Scope and EC for Safe Nano. I'm sure you have known them already, otherwise you look it up. Patros and Gracious, two very important projects, are quite big, I may say, are about to start not 1st November as it was in this slide, sorry for not correcting this, but it will be 1st January 2018. Okay, that's the amount of money we spent. So as you see, we are somewhere around 20 and 25 million. And here there is another project, NanoCommons, which has to be added. That's an infrastructure project. So 5 million is not inside in the 20. So we end up for this 2017, 25 million. What does it have inside the safety? You see here the topics. First of all, risk governance. We shall develop that a little bit more. Nanoinformatics, and then we see the focus by design, and also regulatory testing for medical technology products, which really, in nano again, which really have quite some connections in characterization and the technologies used with the industrial materials. So, here, just for reference, I will not develop these, you can look it up, and the foundations, the open innovation test beds, it's worth really seeing these items, and further focusing on nanosafety. So what is common for everybody? First, we want to integrate the scientific and regulatory and market phases. We have a gap passing from scientific to regulatory, and this ought to be bridged. We need to consider innovation right from start. Civil society is there already, but it's never good enough, so this has to be really reinforced. International cooperation, I think everybody will agree with me that this global issue must be really global. So international cooperation not only strongly encouraged, but is a must for everybody. We want to be able to add funding from other sources, member state governments or industry. And as we move from the scientific layer to regulatory costs higher, and surely for implementing the regulations in the market, that's even higher. So we must be able to integrate those, and projects in this area, this whole area, can launch specific calls to cover small or big items if necessary. It goes without saying that open access and open data access is applied, and we want to do that seriously. So data in particular must respect ontology that has been developed by NanoMapper, NanoReg, and Duke University in the United States, and the data logging format, the ISTAB Nano. This must be there. Again, support to regulatory bodies and the OECD and ISO and CEN and maybe other international organizations that are active with nano for whatever, for food, for drugs, for whatever. And of course, more than ever, cross-project collaboration is necessary. So these items we expect to see in every particular project and every particular partner doing efforts inside those projects. So governance, what it will be. First, we want to bridge, as I said earlier, reach the civil society and bridge between scientific and the regulatory aspect, but also to fill in the gap between the risk assessment and the risk management, the safe by design. So the items of risk evaluation, risk acceptance, transfer of acceptable risk to the insurance industry, these are not that well covered so far, and we have to work on that. Here in the next, you can see how we think that this might be necessary. Essentially, there are 4 items there: information, communication, planning, road mapping, and policy making, and following up on progress. We don't really get busy with managing the risk per se. This is regulatory bodies and other procedures, but the science ought to be ready, ought to be complete and consistent. What we want as a final outcome, so the project or the projects, they need to work. At the end of the term, when they finish, we want 2 essential things: the council and the tools, and of course the rest, which is more or less understood by itself: the high quality data, sustainable solutions. This is apple pie and motherhood, really. So what we want is the council and the tools. So the council without the tools is really talking without acting, and tools is, yeah, they tend to have a tendency to stay in the cupboard if nobody uses them or tell how to use them. So these essential 2 deliverables, having the risk governance council and the tools. Remember that we are talking about 6 regulatory domains for materials, food, cosmetics, biocides, drugs, and medical devices, and we have a 7th one, which is the definition. And this is not finished job. So we have to work on all those items. Next, we have the nanoinformatics. I'm not going to develop that, except one item that we see really at the end. And a certain time we need to develop confidence in nanoinformatics and in general in predictive models through standards, harmonized SOPs, OECD validation principles, and so on. So this nanoinformatics is really long term, and there's a lot of safe by design in it, but it's not yet ready. So I just underline this item and then I pass to the next, which is for 2019. That means that in 2019 will be proposal submission and selection, contracting by the end of 19, and the first euro will be paid in January 2020, most likely. So here what we want really to talk about the real thing, the metrics we use and the sectors. So each material is not seen as material, but is seen as material in an application, which has a service life, an end of life, fate, and goes somewhere or returns for another process. So the real aim of this is to look at the main sectors. We don't tell which ones. It belongs to the proposers to choose what industry they work with and where they want to get themselves busy with. And more than one project, of course, are expected for this. So we estimate to be able to spend something like 20 million in this. Now, how this is done, here we are not talking, we're talking about real materials in real matrices and real real industrial processes. And of course, there at the bottom of the slide, you see that we envisage to have the parallel call scheme implemented for this topic. So United States calls may adapt so that project started about the same time. That means start 2020. So what do we want here is save by design approaches and tools together. Of course, occupational health. So mitigate, control and mitigate exposure and develop low cost techniques so that they are affordable. So this is really industrial thinking. And there is, before closing, there is for the year afterwards, there is a second safe by design that you have seen it in an earlier slide and also the medical stuff. But for economy of space, and since this is 2 years ahead, then leave it for later webinar. Thank you very much.